I gotta apologize for being late, but there is this thing which some may call it meme magic. Others may have different words for it. During the day, no one wants to call me. Okay, I'm forever alone. No one wants to talk to me. But literally, the the moment I want to start streaming, no sooner, no later than that, the phone starts ringing. Everyone tries to call me. I just do not understand why this is. And I don't know how to avoid it. If I move the streaming hour earlier or later, people will find ways to call me. You know what I think? I think if I start streaming again at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., there's no way anyone would call me, right? I mean, who would call me at those hours? So maybe that is how I need to figure things out. Anyway, right? Enough about my problems and my worries. Welcome to the show. Hello, chat. It's been a very interesting day. A lot of news coming out. You're going to see tomorrow the panic among left-leaning activists. They are very concerned because what's happening now, and this is very interesting because of the United Kingdom, right? In United Kingdom, you can go to jail if you offend someone over the computer. So if you do the clickety-clack on the keyboard, you go to jail. It's a free country, right? So the reason this is interesting is because there have been people who have been charged for writing offensive stuff about the Queen. It's kind of difficult to make the argument that it's not offensive, right? I mean, they get I believe it's 2 weeks of mourning. There's a whole, day off, if I'm not mistaken, where people from the United Kingdom can mourn over the loss of the Queen. And then there's like 2 weeks in which various other events will happen. So to say negative things about the Queen during this time period is big yikes. And on top of that, people can also get fired. So there was this gentleman, Owen Jones, I believe, on Twitter, which was very concerned that the Daily Mail may go through people's inbox. They can go through people's social media and they can look through offensive stuff that they said 9 years ago, and they can use that in order to get people fired. And I was thinking, oh my God, really? Wow. Who would do something? That is such a disgusting tactic. That is such a horrible tactic. What type of individuals would do something like that? Imagine that. Like you have social media and people go there in order to post their thoughts and they're just the same thing that they would talk in real life, and then they would lose their job over it. I mean, I just imagine a world like that. Imagine living in a place that, holy shit, that's awful. I hope the Daily Mail doesn't do that, because that was the concern, is that the Daily Mail might go through left-leaning activists. I mean, just... Right, let me just put the chat on my phone. For some reason, it chose not to work right now. And then we can talk about King Charles. The thing that I spoke about this yesterday, by the way. I think, King Charles is not in a position where people would envy him right now. I mean, your mom passes away. I've gone through that. I know that he is of a specific age, but still, it must hurt. I don't know the relationship between him and his mother, given the fact that his mom is the queen. They probably don't have the same casual relationship that we have with our mothers, right? There's a lot of protocol involved. You can't just go and visit your mom, no, there's protocol and there's guards, and so I kind of get that his relationship with the queen may have been different than that of the commoners with their mom. But still, it must hurt, right? I mean, it's your own flesh and blood. You might... So, you find out that she passes away, and you're very distraught, I assume. And then the next day, it's supposed to be one of the happiest days in your life, where you get coronated. And you think about it, and it's every single king and queen that have ascended the throne. Like, one day, your father or your mother passes away, and the next day, you get the crown. And I'm like, can there be like a small time period, like maybe a couple of weeks, so the heir gets its shit together. My favorite monarch is Vlad Tepes. This has been my stance for years. I don't know why people like Vlad Tepes that much. I mean, yeah, he was a good military leader, but it's not like he was a monarch that brought a new way of thinking, that brought out different types of culture. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, he won a few battles. What can I say? Especially like if you're from the region, then yeah, I understand why you'd like Vlad the Impaler. But if you're from a faraway place, I don't understand the appeal that much. Although, given the fact that people in Turkey are very, I can't say like aware, but like if you name drop Vlad Tepes in Turkey, people know who he is, and they seem to have some respect for him. You know, oh, Vlad Tepes, and they know who he is, and they're showing respecto, which is very interesting, right? Because he did manage to achieve the impossible with a tiny army on a plot of land that barely anything grows. He held up against the Ottoman Empire, which is, yeah, I mean, an accomplishment. So, with that out of the way, should we talk about the king, King Charles? Or should we wait for more people to join the stream before we do that? It's called, look at this, chat. Look at this. Look at it. The king for the climate. Ah, this is beautiful. The king for the climate. This is what we're going to be talking about today. How old is King Charles? He's probably the oldest person that have ascended the throne of the United Kingdom. Let me check. King Charles' age. Holy fucking 73 years old. I didn't know that. 73 years old. Wow. So, yeah, that's a venerable age. This is the age where most people have retired. 73, chat. 73. When does he make 74? Oh, November the 14th. So, in a couple of days, he's actually going to be 74 years old. This man managed to witness World War II, didn't he? The only diplomacy Turks understand... Damn it. Okay. Actually, the Turks were very reasonable when it came to diplomacy. Let me show you something interesting about King Charles in the meantime. So, apparently, King Charles was being groomed to take the throne for quite a while. I mean, for most of his life. They were trading him, not just to take the throne, but they were trading him to impress the public. And what's interesting, trying to find the photos and whatnot. Here we go. Right. They were trying to make it seem like he is this James Bond type of figure. It's kind of interesting because back then, people really liked the James Bond movies, and James Bond movies were a big part of British culture. And he would appear in various manly events, whether it was him flying planes, whether it was him, I don't know if he was actually in a safari or something, but like, he had these various escapades that the press would capture him in to show that he's an adventurous fellow. And that was pretty much his year of his youth. Like, he was groomed in order to be liked by the public. And apparently he was very popular with the ladies as well. But all of that stopped, I believe, around 1940. No, this is unfucking real. Give me 1 second. I gotta give some medicine to my cat, and I set up an alarm, and every time I'm streaming, I forget to turn it off. But now it's off. So, yeah, he had like a very interesting way of appealing to the public because back then people valued different things, and now people don't really care about James Bond. You know, in fact, if he was to pose the way he posed back then, it would be viewed as toxic masculinity. You know, like going in adventures, flying airplanes, doing all of that stuff. It's like, masculine. Now it's diversity, inclusivity, and equity. So now you get this type of thing. It's the climate king. King for the climate. Takes over the throne in England. Ring of Power was so bad, the most powerful user on the server rage quitted. Yeah. So, this is not really a facade. Like, it's not something which he does in order to appeal to the younglings, you know, to appeal to the young generation. This is something which he did since the 1970s. Now, the thing that I find it bizarre to be a person that pushes for climate since 1970s, and I'll tell you what actually bewilders me, because if you guys remember, if you're legitimately a person that's concerned about the climate for more than 40 years, you will notice that the environmentalists supported completely opposite things. So, for example, back when I was a kid, environmentalism, and if you watch Captain Planet and other TV shows which try to push the environmentalist message to 11, you will see that what they were trying to do was to protect the forests, right? It's like the forests are very important and they're housing various animals, so we shouldn't destroy the rainforest, and instead we should focus on plastic. And I remember many laws which outright banned paper bags, which were popular at the time. They banned paper bags in favor of plastic. And now it's literally the other way around. Now I see the Germans deciding to heat up people with biomass. Now, biomass actually means wood, right? So chopping the forests again. Like, we're chopping the forest again. In fact, like, chopping forests is actually good because the forest is considered renewable, right? So the forest is renewable nowadays. Electricity and gas, oh, well, you know, electricity may be good depending on how you make it, but gas bad. And now it's like plastic bags are out, paper bags are in. Do you guys remember that other movie, Day After Tomorrow, I believe it was called? Yeah, Acid Rain, that was another thing. This one is a very interesting movie, which due to mankind activities, the Earth freezes over. What was this release? Because it was in my lifetime. It was quite recent, I believe. Well, recent. I mean, it was in the last 10 or 20 years, I believe, right? So like, my point is, like, how can you support both of these extremes? Now what's interesting is that while the environmentalists were supporting paper bags and now it's like plastic bags and then paper bags again, and when they were saying, oh, if we don't do something, this is the future, and now if we don't do something, scorched earth, right? Regardless of the fact that they were supporting two different things, the solution was always the same: big government, right? Like, the only way to escape from this is to give government more power, pay more taxes. That's the only solution. It's also the solution to fight racism. It's also the solution to fight the pandemic. It's also the solution to whatever problem, real or imaginable, is bigger government, more interference in our lives, more censorship, more control over people's private time, and of course, more taxes. Yes. Give me 1 second so I can. Can I sip? No, I can't sip anything. Okay, I'm going to dive first. But we're also going to talk about King Charles, the environmentalist king. Here we go. So, when Prince Charles became King Charles III, and this is the name which he decided to adopt. All right, I'm dying go first. Give me a second. I need to drink. Not alcohol, just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So, Prince Charles became King Charles. This is the name which he adopted. After the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, his decades-long crusade to elevate environmental protection ascended to the throne with him. Charles gave his first speech on the topic of 1970, revealing an interest that he evolved over the past half-century. He has used his public persona to advocate for forest, soil, ocean, and biodiversity conservation, and has pushed businesses to invest programs to persevere and value nature. Oh, brilliant. What can I say? Although modern green activists, from what I can tell, at least here in Europe, they don't give a shit about the forests, at least not that much. Like, as I mentioned before, forests are now considered renewables. So if you, like, for example, if you build a house out of logs, that's fine, because it's renewables. Like, that, now you're green. But if you build a house out of things that require gas in order to produce, then, well, now you cause the carbon footprint. So it's very interesting. Anyway, Charles has demonstrated a very long-lasting and extremely deep knowledge of the impact of human activities on the environment. I don't even know if it's a deep knowledge. I mean, it's literally on every single channel on television. Like, whenever you turn on the channel, like Google makes sure that whatever search engine you use, whatever search term you use, you're going to be bombarded with articles after articles about the human activities on the environment. Again, I don't know if it's like some deep lore. It's like some esoteric knowledge that only Prince Charles knows. In many ways, he has been ahead of politicians in appreciations of concern for this issue. Yeah, again, if you are ahead of the curve, like, I might make a video where I go and I show you what policies green activists in Europe supported. And you're going to see, like, their predictions sometimes are completely in contradictions with each other. The best example is the paper bag, right? So, as I mentioned before, when I grew up, paper bags were a thing. And then it was like the environmentalists came and made the law so that, no, we don't use paper bags anymore because it destroys the forest. We need to use plastic bags. And then the same environmentalists came and like, no, plastic bags are not okay. We need to use paper bags again. And it's like, okay, well, like, can you make up your fucking mind, you know? Now Britain is facing tumultuous changes. The Queen's death came 2 days after the nation's new Prime Minister Liz Truss was sworn in to replace Boris Johnson, a conservative politician who surprised many Britons by embracing historically strong climate action. Yeah, I mean, it was like part of the Build Back Better initiative, which not only Boris Johnson, but the World Economic Forum and Joe Biden and many other leaders, I think like Canada, Justin Trudeau, the chicka from New Zealand, right? Like all these people from all around the world were like, oh yeah, Build Back Better, strong climate action. Some advocates have expressed concern that Truss is less committed to those policies, and some of her recent cabinet appointees have been described as climate skeptics. Well, you know, in a time where you have an energy crisis, if you don't want the people to eat you alive, then probably, you know, a little bit of skepticism is in order. I'm just saying, you know, like when you see on Twitter, I don't know how real they are, but when you see on Twitter people showing gas bills of 6,000 pounds, maybe it's a mistake, maybe they faked it, I don't know. But suffice to say that this winter they might actually have very high gas prices in the UK. A little bit of skepticism might be warranted. Charles I and II dissolved Parliament. Charles III, probably nothing, but it makes me pretty excited to think of those wankers sacked. Maybe Charles I will dissolve the monarchy. That's what some people are saying, because the current Prime Minister, Liz Truss, people found out recordings of her political takes from years ago, and she wasn't very happy with the monarchy. I don't know if that's true or not, if they're taken out of context or whatever, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, so He is now king of a nation. Look at this. Reeling from painful energy prices caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I genuinely don't understand what type of person reads this and believes it. Right? Like, you're in the United Kingdom. Why would the gas price in the United Kingdom go up because of Russia? Like, how much gas was the UK taking from Russia? The answer is not a lot. The United Kingdom was taking gas from Norway. Now, why was the United Kingdom taking gas from Norway? Because fracking was banned, and because there were many environmentalist rules which prevented United Kingdom to be energy independent. So, in other words, they weren't allowed to drill in their country, so they had to import from somewhere else. Where were they importing it from? They were importing it from Norway. Okay, so what does this have to do with Russia? Well, Germany, with its own environmentalists, they didn't allow Germans to drill in their country, and they didn't allow Germany to expand its energy sector, and they forced Germany to close down its nuclear reactors. So because of that, Germany was taking gas from Russia. Donald Trump came in and pointed out how monumentally stupid that is, and the Germans laughed at him. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the picture, which is circulating on the internet by now. Now, because Germany had its Nord Stream 2 cancelled and the Nord Stream 1 pipeline shut down, it's now taking gas from Norway. If you guys remember what I said previously, is that Norway was exporting to the United Kingdom. So, now the gas is diverted from Norway to Germany, and this is why the United Kingdom doesn't have its own gas supply and it's having an energy crisis. Because the gas that it was taking from Norway is now going to Germany. And it's because Germany had environmentalists which had their actions leading to Germany importing gas from Russia rather than being energy independent. So that's pretty much it. Anthony Smith, thank you for 5 British for the donation. But anyway, right, so it's not, I mean, it is technically due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but it's indirectly. All right, like the UK is far away from Russia. This has to do more with the politics of the European Union. Some people might even say that this is the European Union way of punishing the UK for Brexit. So, because Germany is the heart of the EU, they're telling Norway, hey, give gas to us, don't give to the UK, let them freeze this winter, right? Like, that's pretty much how it is. But still, it's mostly because of environmentalism. It's not due to it's not due to like the fact that there's no gas in Europe. Like, if you look at the map of Europe and you look where the resources are, you'll see that there's plenty of gas in Europe. This is what Sargon doesn't discuss on the Lotus Eaters. There's plenty of gas in Europe. The problem is that due to environmentalist policies, people aren't allowed to exploit that gas. And people are taking gas from Russia because it's cheap. So that is why the conflict in Ukraine is affecting Europe. Take into account that during the Cold War, Western Europe was energy independent from Russia. Like, there was no trade between Russia and Western Europe. And yet Western Europe managed to win the Cold War. So this is complete nonsense. It's like, oh, well, without Russia, how will Europe survive? No. Right? Like, Europe shouldn't have got gas from Russia, period. Especially during due to the, I can't say like hostile tradings, but like, it was always expected that at some point in human history, Russia is going to have expansionist tendencies again. And don't give me the bullshit with NATO, right? Like, Poland is in NATO and Russia didn't give a fuck. So, and there's other countries in NATO. This is not about NATO. But anyway, right? I don't want to get into the conflict and whatever. What I do want to say is that Western Europe used to be energy independent. The only reason it's not energy independent is due to the activists. Period. That's it. Okay, so it's not like the conflict with Ukraine. Apparently, the UK is facing risk of people shivering in their homes this winter. This is a nice way to put it, shivering in their homes. Although I will give them this. The United Kingdom is not a very cold nation. It's not like Norway. It's not like Romania. It's not like Russia. The winters in the UK are usually acceptable. You know, they're agreeable. Like even without heating, you can survive. You can put two pair of jackets on you, and you can sit in the house the same way my parents sat during communism, when there was no gas. And what you do is, like, you sit in your house with a sweater, and literally what I've said, like, two pairs of jackets, right? You put the jacket on and then another jacket on. And this is how my parents lived. Horrible, I know, but it's survivable. I mean, it's doable. What potentially divergent views from the monarch and the prime minister could mean for the UK climate policies is an open question. Charles opened the Global Climate Conference COP26 last year, when it was hosted in Scotland. And he called for a military-style campaign to harness the wealth of the private sector. See, this is why I'm concerned. Like, you have this royalty, this king, calling for a military-style campaign. Like, what happens in a military-style campaign? In a military-style campaign, human rights are being suspended. That's what happens, right? Like, the government takes over, your rights are being suspended, and for the time of the military-style campaign, the government has almost all the power. It becomes almost fascistic in nature. I mean, look at Ukraine, right? Like, one of the first things they did is, like, they said men over the age of 18 aren't allowed to leave the country. So they took away the right of freedom of movement. That's what happens in a military-style campaign. Your rights just go away. And then he talks about harnessing the wealth of the private sector. This is fascism. The government harnessing the wealth of the private sector. This is what Benito Mussolini wanted to do. And then take into account that at COP26, all the rich people, well, not all of them, but overwhelmingly most of them, use their private jets to go there. Right? Nothing against that. Like, Prince Charles didn't have anything to complain about all of the private jets going to COP26. Let me see if I can find the meme. Private jets, COP26. Here we go. If I'm not mistaken, the US president also went with its entire motorcade of private security. I don't know if it was COP26 or another environmentalist meeting. And take into account, you know, like, you had to, if you had children, you had to get them to school using Zoom call, because apparently we live in 2022 and you can use Zoom and you can use Skype. Why do you have to go there in person? So, good question. Like, why does Jeff Bezos from the United States needs to take his private jet and fly all the way to Scotland? Why couldn't he just appear on a television using Zoom? Here you go, Air Force One, right? Why did the United States president and the Australian prime minister require to go all the way to Scotland using private jets? Why couldn't they travel commercial? Another question, right? I mean, hey, you know, the climate, right? This is what the topic of the day is. So this is why it's very difficult for me to take these people seriously, that they actually want to help, that they're the solution to the problem. I mean, it's next to impossible when you see shit like this. This is the meme which most people have shown. You know, like, I'm pretty sure it probably looks like this if you take them all together. If you do a time-lapse photo and you put them all of these private jets together. And it's not only that, like, it's not just this. Well, what is the name of that actor? Climate change ambassador. Yacht. Also, funny story. If you look in Europe, most of the rules regarding, you know, CO2 emissions and stuff like that, they don't apply to yachts. Right? So, again, I'm not against actors being on yachts and whatnot, but like this is the climate ambassador. Right? This is the person that's supposed to tell me about minimizing my carbon footprint. And, like, there's nothing I can do in my entire life. Like, if I try, starting this moment, if I do my best to pollute as much as I can until I die, I will never manage to pollute as much as DiCaprio. It just can't. It's physically impossible. So, yeah, I mean, I genuinely don't think that these individuals care about saving the planet. I think they want to expand the government and their powers. You know, look at Davos. Davos meal and see what they eat. Do you think they eat the bugs? Do you think they have a vegan diet at Davos? I mean, look here, right? So these are the people that talk about, oh, we need to save the planet and we need to start eating more sustainable meals and we need to consider a vegan diet and blah, blah, blah. Where's the bugs then? I don't see them. I see a very diverse meal. You know, I see diverse. Look at this. Davos menu. Look. So yeah. These are the same individuals that lecture you about how to eat. I don't care about what people say. You know, I look at their actions and what they do. Deforestation is a green policy. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to that. I literally wouldn't be surprised if it comes to that because they already claim that forests are renewables. So it's not like before. Like before, you couldn't even take a piss in the forest because you might upset the spotted owl or the horned viper or some shit. Now it's like, oh well, you know, the forest can be planted again. Any leader who has to confront such life-threatening challenges knows the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of prevention. Already the media is salivating and trying to get Charles to be more proactive. Now, again, people in the United Kingdom, you know that the monarchy is, for the most part, at least what we know to the public, is politically inactive. Like the previous queen, she didn't say anything regarding politics, as far as I can tell. I think like she was parroting Greta Thunberg at one point because she was caught under a hot mic saying that, oh, all these world politicians talk, they just talk, but they do no action. So that was like literally the only political take that I know the Queen to have had. And this is why the monarchy managed to remain in the UK, because you have a very high approval rating, both on the left and the right. People support the monarchy in Britain because of the fact that the Queen didn't piss off anyone. Now, there were attempts at dismantling the monarchy. Like, there were some pushes in the media, there were some politicians that suggested it, but it wouldn't work because the electorate didn't want it. So, overwhelmingly, people were against it. But if you were to have a monarch which tries to overstep, which has very strong political leanings, which supports the current thing, which after a while stops being the current thing, then the approval rating of the monarchy drops, and the moment that the press starts saying, hey, do we really need a monarchy? Like, is this something that we should really have? Blah, blah, blah. You might notice that the politician starts to gain more support. So, this is why it would be very dangerous if if King Charles would decide to be more active in its role. If he doesn't stay in his cage, he'd be kicked out. It really depends, though. It really depends, because the question is, like, how many people promote green causes in the United Kingdom? And you also need to understand something else about environmentalists. Environmentalists, they love to talk about how, well, we need to do more to save the planet, we need to go vegan, blah, blah, blah. But I guarantee you this. The moment they will not be able to pay their electricity bill, like the moment they will sit during the winter, shivering from the cold, and they will look at their electric bill and they will be like, I can't afford this, they will stop being environmentalists. I don't know of a single environmentalist that's not a person that can be described as not in my backyard. Like, they want environmentalism, but they don't want it in their backyard. The moment it affects them, they stop being an environmentalist. It's like fucking magic. So, it's very dangerous to cater to these people politically in a time when there's an energy crisis. Like normally when everything is fine and everything is good, yeah, you can talk about the environment and blah 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 blah. And you're going to have people that vote and support you. However, when the consequences of their actions catches on, and they're going to notice, oh shit. And you can blame Putin all you want, but at one point the war in Russia is going to be over, right? And who are you going to blame then? Who are you going to blame when Ukraine and Russia quits fighting? You can't blame, oh, but still Putin. You know, like 60 years from now, I don't think they will be able to say, oh, it's Putin. Will they still want to pay the king's energy bill? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, right? Because that's how it starts. That's how people legitimately start thinking. It's like, well, I'm shivering. My energy bill is too expensive. Why do I have to pay the king's energy bill? Why isn't the king shivering with me as well? I mean, doesn't he care about the environment? So, apparently, Alden Mayer, a senior associate at E3G and a longtime international policy observer, said there's no doubt where Charles stands in the depth of the commitment to the climate. Clearly, he gets it, and he's been giving powerful speeches. Using his throne's influence to encourage political and business changes on climate might be one of his biggest contributions to the environment. He has demonstrated a real commitment not just from recognizing the risks, but also in finding imaginative solutions. So at the World Economic Forum at Davos, Switzerland, Charles launched the Sustainable Markets Initiative, which aims to get business leaders to invest in economically friendly operations. Since then, 500 CEOs have pledged their support for the initiative's Terra Carta, or Earth Charter, which will be launched this year. The non-binding pledge commits chief executives to support rapidly accelerating the world's transitions towards a sustainable future. By the way, sustainable is the new chant of equality, right? Like, so in the name of equality, in the past, the governments demanded more power and more authority. So I give the government more power and more authority, and we're going to become more equal. Now it's sustainable. Like, give the government more power and more authority, and we can move towards a sustainable future. The group awarded its Terra Carta seal of 47 companies in recognition of their commitment and momentum towards the creation of a genuinely sustainable market. Firms such as Amazon, Com, and Bank of America. AstraZeneca as well. Okay, so basically all the firms that profited during the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like Amazon was considered an essential business. Bank of America, I don't think that got shut down. I know a lot of hedge funds were purchasing property that people couldn't afford to pay the mortgage for anymore. AstraZeneca, I think it made a couple of pennies during the pandemic. I'm not very sure about it, but like it sounds like something that I would have invested in if I had the time machine. While those efforts have gained attention, it's Charles' specific focus on nature and sustainability that might make a greater mark. My sense is that the private sector in Britain already knows that it needs to be heavily involved with deep decarbonization. Yeah, so when they talk about private sector, they're not talking necessarily about your mom and pop's shop, which they're, well, in the United States at least, but I think in Britain as well, they work tirelessly to destroy, right? Like the mom and pop business wasn't essential, was shut down during the pandemic while the big supermarket chains were allowed to operate. The inflation is going to hurt them the most. I'm not very sure about the taxation, but the rising price in electricity and gas also hurts the mom and pop store. So when they talk about the private sector, they mean big businesses, right? Like they mean the banks, which they get to invest, and they will only invest if you show that your business is sustainable. They talk about companies like Amazon, right? Like that's what they're talking about when they say the private sector. In the book Lord of the Flies, there was a conflict between some of the boys who wanted to eat a pig and someone who wanted to eat mold out of a cave. Let's see what happens when we are told to eat mold. I genuinely like, okay, so if you want to talk, because I finished the article and we can have a candid conversation, right? Like if you want to talk about eating the bugs thing, right? I mean, that's where the great push is coming from. I don't think the push is sustainable. I generally like don't think that eat the bugs is going to be sustain. It's going to be a class issue. Like let's assume it actually gets pushed, right? Like let's assume the governments promote heavily the concept of people eating crickets and stuff. I think like some people might like it. Some people may actually eat it. I've never ate it. I don't know how it tastes like, but some will, and even then, like it's mostly going to be the lower class. Like you're never going to see Joe Biden eating the crickets. You're never going to see King Charles eating the bugs. You know, like that's something for the lower classes. Um, the price of meat may get more expensive, but even then, like countries will just import meat from elsewhere. Like they will import meat from China, they will import meat from Turkey. It's going to become a delicacy to have meat. I lived like that, you know, like I lived like that under communism. It was let me show you the picture so you can understand how things were like. A lot of people living in Western Europe, like they can't imagine such a world. But this is where we're moving, and I think it's possible because I already lived it. I didn't catch most of it, by the way. I was very young when the communist regime fell. But the mentality and the morality of it remained for several years, even after the Iron Curtain fell, right? So during communism, you had a lot of money. Like almost everyone had a job, almost everyone had money. That wasn't the problem. But most of the meat went towards exports, right? So all of the agricultural goods, all of the meat, all of that, like a big chunk of it went towards being exported outside. So there was very little for internal consumption. And what the government made people have was a ration card. Let me see if I can find one so you guys can see how it looked. So you had ration for meat, you had ration for vegetable oil, you had ration for gas, you had ration for most of the things that that you require, right? So okay, here's the ration. I think this one is for bread, if I'm not mistaken. So this was how a ration card looked like, right? Like you had the month, and let's say you were allowed to have 5 loaf of bread per month, right? So you go with the ration card towards the supermarket or whatever, or towards the market. They didn't have supermarket. And let's say you buy a loaf of bread on the 22, so they will cross the 22, right? Because you already bought bread. So the next time you go and buy bread, you go on the 23rd, and they would cross that as well. So if you had like 5 bread a month, like once you had 5 crosses per that particular month, you could no longer buy bread. Like even if you had money, even if you wanted to pay more, it didn't matter. Like the moment you had 5 loaves of bread and they would count it, that's it. Now if you lose the ration card, you lost the ability to buy bread. Now take into account there were many people in the household, so every person had its own ration card. So for example, I had 5 loaves of bread, my wife had 5 loaves of bread, and together we had 10. So that's pretty much how it went. And it was for beet as well, and you can see in this picture it shows how much stuff you are allowed, like 2.5 kilograms of meat per month. Just think about how much is that, right, compared to what you have now. So 2.5 kilograms of meat per month, 1.3 kilograms of rice, 2 kilograms of sugar, so on and so forth. And, you know, like, in a way, this actually promoted the concept of marriage, because people didn't want to divorce, because if you divorce, well, now you only eat 2.5 kilograms of meat. But if you have a family, you live with someone else, oh, you have 5 kilograms of meat. But anyway, right, so, this is pretty much what I think is being pushed right now. Like, this is what the people at Davos probably want us to have again. Now, obviously, they're not going to use the ration card, but they might use the holy QR code. Like, I have seen a MasterCard, for example. Right now, it's voluntary. It's not mandatory. But they do say that you can have the option to protect the environment by connecting your credit card to carbon credits. So basically, when you purchase meat, you lose carbon credits. When you take a plane trip, you lose carbon credits. And then when you end up with 0 carbon credits per month, then you can't buy anymore, right? You can't, even if you have money, the credit card doesn't work. It gives you an error. So that's pretty much how I definitely think it would work. So let's say hypothetically, right? Like this is the way I view it. Let's say that meat, like one kilogram of pork, costs 5 carbon, right? 1 liter of gas, like filling your car with gas, would cost, I don't know, 20 carbon. And let's say you have like 100 carbon per month. And then if you buy 2 kilograms of pork, well, now you have 90 carbon that month. Let's say you buy 5 liters of gas. Well, you can't, because you can only buy 4 before you reach 0 carbon. And even if you have more money, even if you were to be a rich person and show, well, I have money to buy more, they would be like, no, it would give you an error. Like, you're not allowed any more purchase. So what ended up happening in this system is that the black market flourished. Like, most people would try to get to know someone that worked at a farm or someone that worked at the grocery store, and they would start buying under the table. Money pretty much lost all value. Like, money wasn't really worthless, but people didn't really care about money. What people cared about was this. This is what most people started caring about. This had such a strong purchasing power because you would open doors with this, right? Like, you needed something done, and you like for example, a mechanic to fix something in your car, and he would say, well, there's no part that he has left. Oh, you give him a camel pack, and all of a sudden he manages to find that particular part that's missing. You need to get in line at the hospital. You know, like, there's 100 patients in front of you, and you really need to see the doctor. You get a pack of Camel, all of a sudden you're first in line. Your kid gets bad grades at school. You give the teacher a pack of Camel, all of a sudden your kid manages to get really good grades. So that's pretty much how it worked. Now, again, you got the pack of Camel, you didn't smoke it, you would give it to another person, and that other person wouldn't smoke it either, right? Like, he would just give you a favor, and then he would pass the pack of Camel forward, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't just the pack of Camel, it was Camel, coffee, like if you had Jacob's coffee, and I think, whiskey, right? So whiskey, pack of cigarettes, Camel, LM, mostly American brands, and American coffee. That's what opened doors. That was like the new currency. Like, you had an entire system of currency completely separated and detached. Like, this was pretty much the Bitcoin of the era, if you want. You know, like, people say invest in Bitcoin and shit. No, like, this was the Bitcoin back then. Like, if you had this thing, you are set. And it was difficult to get as well. Because, like, you couldn't work for Camel. Like, you had to do favors to people. Like, you had to get a job that people require favors from you. And then you would get this additional type of gold currency that you couldn't get anywhere else. So, for example, if you are a school teacher and you knew that a kid is connected, like his parents are connected, you would start giving that kid bad grades. Like, you would start asking him questions until he doesn't know how to respond, give him bad grades, and then his parents would come to school and give you the Camel pack. That's how things worked. Perhaps this can help towards the second monitor before monitors get ratioed. You're the boss, but just a suggestion. Dude, I have this. Alright? Like, this is gold. This is my second monitor. Cats, if they're edible, depends on which culture you're from and which place you are. Uh, I think there are countries where it's actually illegal to eat them, but there are countries where you can. I personally wouldn't advise it because I love cats. But other than that, like I read the Vox journalist or a BuzzFeed journalist, I forgot which one. It's easy to confuse them. They said that cats taste worse than dogs. Like cat meat is stringy, dog meat is like lamb. I actually tend to believe that because there was a case in my country, also after communism fell, where people at the farmers market were selling dog meat, trying to pass it off as lamb, and they got arrested for it. But a lot of people didn't know, and a lot of people ate it. So I assume that it's difficult to tell. Very bizarre, I know, but still. I do expect though that if meat starts disappearing, like if you don't see meat on the market, the dog problem in certain Eastern European countries is going to get fixed by itself. I'm not saying that dog meat is like lamb. I have no idea because I haven't tasted. But there was a BuzzFeed journalist which wrote an article about it. Like he traveled to an Asian country and wanted to see how it tastes, and that's how he described it. And given the fact that there were people conning other citizens at the farmers market, and they actually went for several months and didn't get caught, I do assume that, I mean, it must taste similar. I've no fucking idea. I don't think it tastes similar, right? Because it's a carnivore. Like, carnivores usually have more stringy meat to them, and they're more muscular than herbivores, but it is what it is. Yes, I of course don't eat dog or cat, and I mean that goes without saying. But someone in the chat asked the question, and I managed to answer as best as I could. If things get bad, I have the cats to eat. I see. Yeah, they probably don't taste that good. I think like if they were to taste good, like notice that the countries that eat dogs and cats are usually countries that went through massive famines in the past, and that kind of explains it. And I find it very interesting because all these countries that went through famines, some of the worst famine on earth was in China during Mao. The countries that went through that famine, they also ate bugs, crickets, and other things. Notice how they don't eat bugs and crickets and other things, but they, like, some of them still eat dogs and cats. So it goes to show that, you know, this thing, it's like, oh, society trains you. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't think, like, society trains people not to eat bugs. I think, like, people genuinely don't like them. I think they might actually be gross. Some might say it's gamey, tasting meat when it's hunted meat, but I don't know. I don't eat wild meat. I actually had the curiosity to eat haunted meat. Hunted, not haunted. But yeah, it's very stringy. It requires a lot of herbs and preparation to make it tasty. Very difficult to cook, especially boar. Like boar is very difficult to eat. You need a proper chef in order to cook it properly. Venison is actually really nice, but like the problem with meat that comes from an animal that was hunted, it's very difficult to digest. Like you shouldn't eat a lot of it. You should eat small portions. Thank you for the donation, Zodite. Buyer's remorse achieved. Well, I'm glad you're happy with the product. Next emoji should be a grasshopper. You know what? I think I should actually do that. Wild Venetian is amazing, yes. Yeah, rabbit meat is actually really good. I understand though that there is health issues if you were to go on a rabbit only meat diet, right? Like if you only eat rabbit meat for some reason, I forgot the actual medical effect, but it would make you go sick in the long run. I think like it lacks something that the human body needs. So anyway, I had an Asian friend in HS who told me neighbors ate his dog when he was 9. That is so weird. I again, like, I understand. Like, for example, right? Eating pigeon. Like pigeon is actually quite tasty. I think like in Romanian supermarket you can find pigeon meat. There are pigeons bred for consumption. But like just because people can eat it, like they wouldn't need eat the neighbor's pet. You know what I mean? Like it's so weird. Um, Maybe he was in a rural area or something like that. You can't eat only protein without fat or carbs. Oh, okay, so that's the thing with the rabbit. Yeah, it does lack fat. That's so. Yeah, I found out that rabbit meat is actually good if you want to lose weight, but you shouldn't only eat that. Like you should be very careful because it doesn't have any fat. It only has protein, so it's not very healthy. Rabbit meat is too lean, huh? There's lots of pigeons around here. Pigeons are probably almost everywhere because people used them in the past as ways of telecommunication. So, if you wanted to send a message really quickly, you would use a pigeon. And because of that, they were domesticated. Like, people would raise chickens and they would raise pigeons. So, nowadays, pigeons are. They're not wild, but they're feral. So if you find a pigeon and you start feed, let's say you manage to take it into your house and you feed it, it's pretty much the same like taking a dog from outside and you make it as your pet. The pigeon will very quickly adapt. It will be tame and it will actually start eating from your hand, and it may even return to your home every night. So they're one of the most easy birds to train and to tame. I think things could get good. Donations feel like planting seeds in places that might turn things around or reach the ears of people that might. Okay. Um, Pigeons are tasty, but not big enough for the family. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the thing with pigeons, again, you can buy some from the supermarket here. Uh, they're not very big. They're more like a delicacy. Let's say you have a couple of guests coming over. You want to impress them with an extravagant meal. Or it's your son's 9-year-old birthday or something like that, and you want to cook something different. Then yeah, you can make a roasted pigeon. You buy like 3 or 4 of them. They're very expensive, and then you can serve that on a plate. But it's definitely not something that you could actually replace. Like you can put on the table on a daily basis because it's very very expensive. I have never eaten rabbit or goat. Rabbit is actually very good. I don't know how to compare it with anything else. It just, I mean, it tastes delicious, especially if cooked properly. Same with goat. I mean, the goat. I guess it depends on the age of the goat, but a lot of cultures eat goat meat, especially if you travel to the Middle East. Goats are very popular over there. Um, and also, I think there's a difference in rabbits. So there's 2 types of rabbits. There's the rabbit that people gain from hunting, which has a different taste than the one that's raised on a farm. Thank you, Todd Sullivan. I appreciate that. Yeah, I noticed that Americans, for some reason, are very shocked if you talk about eating rabbits. I don't know why. I think it's because the rabbit looks cute and adorable, and people just can't get themselves to think that it's on their plate. But here in Europe, there are farms that raise rabbits. Like they specialize in raising rabbits, and yeah, I mean you can buy them from the supermarket as well. They're more expensive. However, like here in Europe, turkey is actually rare. Like finding turkey at the supermarket is, at least in Romania, is something that's quite difficult. And I suppose it's not necessarily because we couldn't have turkeys. It's just people don't like it. It's a type of meat that I find particularly bland. It's very dry, and I gotta say I really dislike eating turkey. Guinea pigs are eaten in certain countries. I think like guinea pigs are similar to rabbits, right? Like they're still rodents. So turkey is tasteless. Yes, like turkey is absolutely disgusting. I don't know why Americans prefer it. It's probably why they have to do the Thanksgiving dinner and they stuff the turkey with all that shit. It's because like empty turkey just tastes horrible. I forgot if I thanked Todd or not, but in case I didn't, I want to thank Todd for his donation. The thing with turkey, though, it's like people say they're birds without brains. The interesting fact is that the original turkey that the colonists found in America was actually a very smart bird, but due to humans growing them in captivity, they eventually lost their wit and they became the birds you see today. And yes, turkeys are birds at war with mother evolution, let's put it like that. I mean, they can't flap their wings. Not only that, like turkeys are one of the few birds that manage to break their own fucking wings. Like imagine how unfit for survival you must be if they can break their own wings just by going about their natural day. So I heard this from farmers. I don't know how true it is, but like if you happen to have, let's say, a house that's on a hill, what the turkeys do, especially if it's windy outside, they attempt to fly as they're like run down the hill, and as they flap their wings because of their immense weight, they break their wings. I mean that when I heard that, I was like, Jesus fuck right, like is that bird real? Like does it exist? And apparently yes, which is why most turkeys are actually kept in an enclosure, so they don't do that. They stare up in the rain and drown themselves. Oh, well, I guess the more I find out about turkeys. Yeah, it's a bird that's usually not bred here in my country. There are certain farmers that have turkeys, but it's not that common. Most people here, they have chickens. Like, chicken is like an obligatory bird to have. Like, almost everyone has it. And after chicken, some people have ducks and geese. And then very rarely do people actually have turkeys, and more often, more recent, people have started breeding ostriches. I don't know how the fuck ostriches survive during the cold here in Eastern Europe, but there are people who enjoy farming them, so I guess it is what it is. Anyway, right. This is pretty much what I know about King Charles. I'm very concerned about his statement that he wants to have a military campaign in order to crack down on uh, environmentalist issues, and that he wants to use the wealth of the private sector. That is very concerning. A lot of people say that he may try to dismantle the monarchy. I don't think that's the case, but what he can accomplish if he is a bad king and he pisses off a lot of people, there might be activists, politicians that might genuinely try to run on a campaign of let's abolish the monarchy. Now, I don't think one monarch can do it. However, if he is really bad and he gets the approval rating of the monarchy to a ridiculous low score, and then the person following him does another bad job, yeah, eventually people might get fed up. So they might actually vote on dismantling the monarchy. Flightless bird seems overly aggressive and single-minded. The dodo became extinct because they had a habit of running towards hunters instead of away. That is true now that I think about it. Like, birds that can't fly are very aggressive. I mean, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? The real question is, V, a breast or a leg, man? Look, I can't say no to the booby. Like, the booby is mythical. Anyway, right. Thank you for watching this. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the comment section. Take care. Also, sorry for not playing Half-Life today. I gotta apologize. I was very busy. But maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I can play Half-Life. And as usual, I'll play it before the late night stream. So thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys later. Take care.